Hello and welcome to another Blissful DIY. I'm Teresa. If you're new here, please hit the subscribe button and also the notification bell next to it. Then you'll be notified every time I post a new DIY video. I try to post weekly. So without further ado, let's get started. For this first DIY, we're going to be creating a boho farmhouse inspired rope basket. You're going to need 2 of the Dollar Tree baskets. You can use the bigger ones, or I'm using the smaller ones here. You're just going to start by cutting off the bottom of the basket, one of the baskets, and then just folding over the sharper edges. These weren't too sharp, just be careful you don't poke your fingers. Once all the edges are folded over, I'm just placing it on top of the other basket and using some twine or rope. It doesn't matter what you use here. You're just gonna tie the baskets together so that they're sturdy. So just tie in like 4 or 5 different places, tying them together. Now that our baskets are tied together, it's time to start gluing the rope. I just started at the bottom and I'm going around with the glue, with a small bead of glue, and attaching it. And then once I get around the first row, I start attaching it to the other piece of the rope. It's a little easier to glue to the rope than to the basket. You're going to continue gluing until you reach the top of the basket, and then once you reach the top, all you have to do is cut your rope and glue it to the inside of the basket. To add a little more design to the basket, I cut 3 strips roughly a foot longer than the basket and braided them. Then I just attached them with hot glue, crossing the unbraided ends over in the front so that they added a nice little design detail to it. To create the handles, I started by making a knot with a loop and then just pulling the piece of rope through that loop to create another loop, and then pulling the rope through that loop to create, and so on until I had it long enough for my handle. You could also just braid 3 pieces of rope together to create your handle, or you could do no handles. It's completely up to you. Now I just glue them to the inside, and there you have your wonderful boho farmhouse basket. For our next DIY, we are creating a boho inspired starburst mirror. You're just going to need wood dowels from the Dollar Tree. The mirror is also from the Dollar Tree, and the wood beads are from Amazon. I will link them down below for you. So to start with, all we're going to do is cut the wood dowels in half. I'm using a pair of scissors to score around the edges of the stick, and then they just break in half nicely. Initially, I thought it was going to be easier to string them on rope and then glue them down, but that was not the case. So I do not recommend stringing them first. I ended up going back in and gluing them individually. I did a big bead, a smaller bead, a big bead, smaller bead, and went in that pattern. I also would recommend using a stronger glue than hot glue. If it gets bumped, they're probably going to fall off. Hot glue does not like to stick to the mirrors and glass very well, so I would use E6000, but for this video, for time purposes, I am going to use hot glue. You can see here that it was kind of a pain to get them to sit properly, and then it just didn't fit nicely. They kept kind of coming off, and it didn't work. So glue them down individually and save yourself the hassle. Now that the beads are all glued on the front, I'm just going to take some sandpaper and rough up the edge of the back to give it a little bit of grit so that the wood dowels stick to the back. I lost a little bit of footage, so right here all I did with the dowels is space them evenly, sticking one down and then directly across from it on the other side of the mirror, sticking that another one. And then after I've got them all placed and equally spaced apart, I went back in with the other dowels and glued them down, making the shorter ones. And so it ends up with that kind of starburst pattern. I was originally going to add wood beads to the longer wood dowels to add a little more interest and design to it, but it's for my daughter's room and she decided that she liked it better as is, so that's how we're going to leave it. And to hang it, all you're going to do is cut a piece of rope or twine and then glue it to the back, and there you have it. You have your boho starburst mirror. For this next DIY, we are going to glue together these two candle holders from the Dollar Tree using E6000 and a little bit of hot glue to make it go quicker. And after you have them glued together, let them sit for just a little bit and then they'll be ready to paint. To paint them, I'm going to be using the Waverly chalk paint in the color ink. For the first coat, I'm using a paintbrush, and then you'll see later I go back in with a paper towel to kind of add a little texture and remove some of the brush marks. You could do both coats in the paper towel, you could do both coats in the paintbrush. It's just up to you. I don't really like the brush strokes, so the paper towel works great for that. So I let it dry in between coats, and now we're just going to go back in with a paper towel and kind of blot it on there to fill in any areas that got missed or aren't quite dark enough. So do that and then you have your stand. Well, that's all I have for you today. If you enjoyed this video, I would love for you to give it a thumbs up and make sure you subscribe and hit that notification bell. And let me know in the comments which one of these DIYs was your favorite. And as always, thank you so much for watching and have a great day.